These are pictures taken in Kingston, Jamaica. A beautiful place, right? It's a tourist hotspot, and with its beautiful beaches, views, and more, Jamaica and other places like it in the Caribbean attract people from all over the world. But tourism has big impacts on the Caribbean. My name is Shaya White, and I'll be discussing tourism's impacts on the environment in the Caribbean. So, how has tourism affected the environment in the Caribbean? Tourism has negatively affected the environment in the Caribbean by causing environmental damage, introducing invasive species, and because sustainable tourism is costly. The College Board Supply Stimulus, Urban Evolution, How Species Adapt to Survive in Cities, says, a city changes an environment dramatically. It creates a completely novel ecosystem. This can be for better or worse, and the same can be said about tourism. Cities and tourism go hand in hand, as to prepare an area for tourism, you essentially have to create a city. You need shops, markets, and other places to buy goods, restaurants, hotels, and other places to stay. And all of these are needed in cities in order for people to live comfortably. But building these destroys habitats and changes the conditions in an area greatly. This is especially visible in vulnerable areas like the Caribbean. Tourism has many impacts on the Caribbean, but today I will just be discussing its environmental impacts and some of the solutions to this problem. First, tourism can cause environmental damage. This graph from Nature Climate Change shows different carbon footprints that result from global tourism, with the three highest being transportation in blue at 49%, goods in green at 12%, and food and beverages in yellow at 10%. A carbon footprint is the amount of greenhouse gases that are released into the atmosphere based on an individual's actions. This contributes to, this has many negative impacts. And since the Caribbean is made up of many islands, transportation, which has the biggest impact on a person's global footprint, has a large part to play in this. This means that tourism in the Caribbean can lead to a large carbon footprint. In addition, this graph from the Department of Civil, Chemical, and Environmental Engineering at the University of Genoa shows different environmental impacts that result from tourist journeys. Tourism has many negative impacts, and this graph shows some of them, such as alveolar depletion, ozone layer depletion, photochemical oxidation, global warming, eutrophication, and acidification, all of which that have extremely harmful effects on the environment. And all of this is just coming from tourism-related travel, not to mention all the other aspects of tourism which have negative impacts on the environment. Second, tourism can introduce invasive species. People and the goods we use travel around the world very quickly, and they often carry uninvited species with them. Ships can carry aquatic organisms in their ballast water, while smaller boats may carry them on their propellers. Insects can get into wood, shipping pallets, and crates that are shipped around the world. Tourism requires both goods and people to travel around the world, so naturally, the introduction of invasive species is increased in places with large tourism industries like the Caribbean. Invasive species can have detrimental effects on the environment and destroy ecosystems by causing competition between native species and invasive species. These can lead to decreases in biodiversity, extinction, altered habitats, and increased competition. As I just stated, invasive species can lead to declines in biodiversity. This graph from the University of Puerto Rico's Department of Biology shows different declines in biodiversity all around the world, with Europe having a 24% decline, North America a 33% decline, Asia a 45% decline, Africa a 65% decline, and the highest being Latin America and the Caribbean with a 94% decline. This shows just how prominent of an issue this is in the Caribbean. This decline can lead species to extinction and destroy habitats and ecosystems on the islands. Third, sustainable tourism is expensive. Sustainable tourism is tourism that is respectful of cultures, supports buying locally, and maintains environments in an area. As you can see in this infographic, there are many benefits to sustainable tourism. This here in green shows sustainable travelers, and in orange, all other travelers. Where 57% of sustainable travelers buy from companies that offer authentic experiences, but only 22% of all other travelers do this. This shows how sustainable tourists are getting a more authentic experience. This trend continues in buying locally and being educated on what you're experiencing and buying, where sustainable tourists encounter this more. Sustainable tourism is better than traditional tourism when it comes to being more authentic and more environmentally friendly. But sustainable tourism comes with costs that lead people against choosing it. Although it can help alleviate negative effects on the environment in the Caribbean and other places, people often choose traditional tourism as it is less expensive than traditional tourism. This leads to a majority of tourists that travel traditionally instead of sustainably, which leads to negative impacts on the environment. But there are solutions to this. The first is to make sustainable tourism more affordable. If local governments make efforts to help local residents lower the prices of sustainable tourism, the amount of travelers that choose it would increase. And simply limiting tourism would limit its negative effects in turn. But with solutions come limitations. The first is that tourism is a business. If local residents that offer sustainable tourism lower their prices, the amount of money that a government gets would decrease, and most governments may not be willing to do that. And second, that people want to travel. People want to see different parts of the world and experience different cultures, and they may not be willing to give that up for the environment. This is my work assignment. Thank you for your time.
All right, I have two questions for you. First up, what evidence did you gather that you didn't use, and why'd you not use it?
I gathered evidence on a type of bird, the dowager, in the Caribbean, and it was showing how its population kept going over carrying capacity, which meant they kept experiencing a die-off. But I felt that my other pieces of evidence that I used in my slides fit better into my claims.
All right, and how did your solution respond to any of the other research or sources that you examined in your research?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, like how does your solution basically respond to what other people have said?
My solutions align with what other people have said, as there's not very many solutions to this issue, but with the option of involving the government, not many people have offered this solution as it has a lot of limitations.